Hello, thank you for joining into Southside's Bible study online. Today, we're going to be talking about compelled to act. Let the fear and the majesty of God compel you to look out for others. Today, we're going to be in Job 31. So brace yourself. You may find yourself mumbling those two words as you walk through the door into your dentist office. Even if you live in fear of a dentist, you don't want to behave like a frightened child. You get anxious when the dental hygienist steps in to clean your teeth, and when the dentist walks in, you whisper those words once more so you'll be ready for whatever may happen next. You may have also spoken those words to yourself just before you take your first look at the estimate of what it's going to cost to have your car repaired, or just before you open an online portal so you can see your child's grades at school. The words beckon you to prepare yourself for a jolt. The Bible passages for this session may startle you, so brace yourself. Studying the passage will bring into view the truth that God sees all people everywhere as His handiwork. In turn, He expects us to stand up and step in when unborn babies, orphans, widows, and other helpless individuals need our help. We are commanded to be the voice and to take the stand for those that are being oppressed, that are being put down, that are being led to the slaughter, that are being mistreated, however you want to call it. As people of God, as Christians, we are to take a stand for those people. Because why? Why should we take a stand for those people? Well, because we know that we're all created in the image of God, which means we have value. He knits us together in the mother's womb. He forms us. He creates us. So we are created with value, and that's why we should stand up for people. That's why we should step in and be the voice of reason, if you will. So Job 31, 13 through 15. If I have denied justice to any of my servants, whether male or female, when they had a grievance against me, what will I do when God confronts me? What will I answer when called to account? What did He who made me in the womb make them? Did not He who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us both within our mothers? Job testified that he considered his servants to be equal to him. His testimony points Christians to a reality we can't afford to overlook. A mother's womb levels the playing field. All of us begin there. Job's resolve to honor his servants as individuals worthy of respect compels us to look into our own consideration of others. It constrains us to take a long look in the mirror and make an honest assessment of our connection with them. Do we value others as God's handiwork? Job teaches us that God sees no distinction between people at all. He cares about powerless individuals. Furthermore, He guides His people to care about them too. Job's testimony raises the question, what do we say to God regarding our responsibility to care for those in need as He expects? So according to Job, God gets personally involved in forming a baby who's going to be born into the world. That was in Job 10, 8 through 11. The work of His hand can be seen in the baby's tiny body. He nourishes the precious treasure who's growing in the mother's womb during her pregnancy. Also, He expects His people to treasure them as the personal work of His own hands. We're wise when we keep in mind that we're accountable to Him for the way that we treat those priceless lives while they're on their way to being born. So think about this question. What are the implications of God having created us in His image? What are the implications of that? Well, like I said earlier, I think one huge implication is that we are created with value. No matter who we are, what our position in the world is, our role, whatever the case may be, every single human being is created in God's image. He creates them, and we have value. They have value. I know that through my line of work, I've talked to several people that are in a crisis situation with themselves, talking about hurting themselves. And if I get a chance to talk to them, I tell them, do you not realize that you're valued, that you have value. If you have been created by God, you have been created with a purpose and you have value. To try to show them that even with everyone around them, if they think they're insignificant, I try to give them that hope so they can see that they were created for a purpose and they were created with value because they're created in God's image. So I believe that's an implication of having being created in His image. So we are all God's handiwork from the womb. In the next verses, we see that we are accountable for how we help those who can't help themselves. So Job 31:16-20. If I have denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow weary, if I have kept my bread to myself, not sharing it with the fatherless, but from my youth I reared them as a father would, and from my birth I guided the widow. If I have seen anyone perishing for lack of clothing, or the needy without garments, and their hearts did not bless me for warming them with the fleece from my sheep. So a couple of highlights here. God expects us to help others who can't help themselves. 2, in Job's testimony, he brought into view an assortment of folks who need our attention. People who live in poverty, people who wrestle with despair, people who suffer with hunger, people who lack reliable family ties, and people who live without the basic essentials. Whether it would be giving our money, our donations, our tithes, or whatever you want to say, whether it be giving our time to sit and talk with somebody, whether it be giving our physical efforts to sit with somebody to help an elderly person build a ramp at their house, or anything of that nature. We've got something to contribute to these people. We have things. God bless. If we are in Christ, we are part of the body, and we have separate blessings that we have. Some people have a ton of money that they can donate to people in need. Some people have a lot of time on their hands where they can donate their time to help people. And then some people have the skill set to use their physical capabilities to help. So something, whatever you've got, something you can do. So how does our abundance foster a responsibility to help those who are in need? Well, like I just talked about, we have things that God gives us that we can give back, that we can help others with, because we're blessed. If you're watching this video right now, you have technology, you have a phone, you have a TV, a tablet, a computer, whatever, and you're on YouTube, you're on some type of streaming show or streaming network. You're blessed, because there are so many people in the world that don't have that don't have basic necessities, let alone internet. So if you're watching this, you're blessed, and you've got something that you can contribute to these people, to people in need. All right, so in the next verses, we see that we are accountable for how we seek justice for those who are unjustly treated. So Job 31:21-23. If I have raised my hand against the fatherless, knowing that I had influence in court, then let my arm fall from the shoulder. Let it be broken off at the joint. For I dreaded destruction from God, and for fear of His splendor I could not do such things. So here in Job's testimony, the scene took a significant shift. As we will see, the shift reinforces the truth that we've been called to promote justice for anyone who's being mistreated. Job stood before a child who didn't have a father at the city gate. The city gate functioned as something like a courtroom. Job happened to be one of the city leaders who was responsible for passing judgment. In the face of the fatherless child who had been brought before the city gate tribunal, Job observed the child's helplessness and acted on his behalf. He stepped in for him. So Job couldn't raise his hand against the boy. His conviction about justice wouldn't allow him to mistreat the boy who appeared before him. He vowed that if he raised his hand to cast judgment on the boy, he would call for his body to be mutilated in a ghastly fashion. The grotesque mutilation of his body would serve a beneficial purpose. He would never be able to raise his hand to mistreat another helpless person again. So here Job leaves us with the sobering challenge. We can't remain idle while indifference or injustice threatens someone who can't do anything about it. Believers are to embrace Job's resolve wholeheartedly. As we ponder the challenge we've we're wise to reflect on two of God's character traits, his integrity and his majesty. Regarding his integrity, we can rest assured God isn't going to be quiet while his people ignore the needs of those he created. He will confront us with the need to change our attitudes. God lavishes his grace on believers by making us citizens of his eternal kingdom when we give our lives to Christ. Reaching out for powerless people who can't help themselves expresses our loyalty to him and his reign over us. That's a command for us to take care of people that cannot take care of themselves. Widows, as it said, orphans, the hungry, people that live in poverty. We, like I stated, we know we have blessings. We have things that we can offer if we're a part of the body. And we need to be willing to do that. We need to be willing to step out and say, I'm going to put myself last, and I'm going to put this person before me right now to help them out. And we can do that. So what are some ways our group can work against injustice toward the vulnerable in our community? Well, I am a big anti-abortion, abolitionist sometimes. No, abolitionists all the time. I would, though we don't have that in our community, like when those conversations get brought up, I tell them straight what it is. It's murder of a baby. It's murder of a human. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what state of growth it's in. At that moment, it is alive, and it is a life, and it is something that God has made and knitted and is forming. And if we take that upon ourselves to terminate that, that's murder. That's wrong. So that's part of how I try to take a stand in the community, is when we have these conversations about abortion. And I tell them, it's, you want to call it health care. It's not health care. It's the opposite of health care. It's murder. And what about this or what about that? You can what if it to death, okay? But the fact of the matter, at the end of the day, taking an innocent human life is murder, okay? So think of how you can help your community stand up, take a stand against people who are vulnerable or anything like that. So let the fear of the majesty of God compel you to look out for others. So studying this passage opens our eyes to what God expects us to do. Now we have a better grip on our responsibility to him for helpless people. So choose one of these following applications. Pray for help. Every day this week, ask God to reshape your perspective regarding powerless people who need people like you to help them. Share your concern. Talk with others in your Bible study group about specific ways God intends for growing believers to look out for people in need. And then meet a need. Take the initiative to serve God by locating and volunteering at a Christ-centered pregnancy clinic or a shelter for individuals or families in crisis. I deal with family crisis all the time. Domestics. I'm on first name basis with lots of families and kids and stuff, and if I think that a kid's being hurt, I have information that a kid's being hurt, look, I'm going to get up and we're going to go take care of this situation. We're going to go stand up for this child. I don't care at the end of the day, whatever right or wrong decision. Look, if I've got information or a hunch or whatever the case may be that someone's being hurt, we're going to follow up with that. Like I'm going to make time to go and handle this, right? Someone's being hurt. A kid's being taken advantage of, or a wife's being beat, or someone's being mistreated or abused or something like that. I'm going to take a stand. We're going to get up and we're going to go take care of the situation. So what can you do? What can you do in your community? You think about that this week. I hope that you found this lesson helpful, controversial, whatever you want to call it. But I stand on truth. I stand on facts. And facts, you can't argue with the facts. The facts and the truth, they are what they are. We can't argue against it. So thank you so much for joining in. I hope you have a blessed week.